Hey guys, I hope everybody's doing good. My best wishes to you all. For this video, I'm gonna kind of do what Tom did, kind of combine a Way Back Wednesday with the open tag, which open tag that's been going around, the one modern versus traditionals. So let's get started right away. First, I know everyone thinks that, oh, Rick, yeah, he's Warthog's the traditional knife guy, but that's not necessarily true. So let me kind of give you guys a little backstory. This is a reproduction of the very first knife I got when I was 8 years old in the Cub Scouts. This one has just like I earned in the Cub Scouts, was with the belt clip, and you'll see it says Cub Scouts on there. And I remember it being the Cub Scout blue, and I also remember it saying Camillus on there. And this tang stamp fits right in the time period that I would have been in the Cub Scouts, which at 8 years old, it would have been 1969. So if you look at this tang stamp, this is the one that would have been issued to me in the Cub Scouts. And the etch is gone. But as a collector, this was something that I wanted. It was my first knife. And I should say I didn't start collecting knives till probably 2014. And before that, I probably owned 8 knives. And all of them were for purpose. I mean, I had a pocket knife, I had a Buck 110, I had this, which is still modern day. But of course, you know what the purpose is for this. I hang this next to my front door in case any quick intrusions. By the way, I think is the most balanced knife you can ever. Look at that baby just roll. Most balanced knife you could ever handle in your hand. So yeah, this hangs right by my door in case, because I keep all other weapons locked up. But this here, just in case, I mean, I don't want to poke anybody. I know none of you guys do too, but it's a strange world. But anyway, I had about 8 knives going into 2014, and they were all purpose knives, like my first 3. This one here, after I lost this, I got it when I was 8 years old. I ended up losing it by the time I was 10. And my dad went to the pawn shop and bought me this. And this is the exact original of my second knife. This is in a original Hammer brand. You can see I had to do a lot of mods to it just because I used it up a lot. But you'll see it's Hammer brand original. And eventually I figured, well, it's time to get a new knife. This one's sharpened down pretty good. You can see it's a Whittler. And I mean, it's sticking up. And so I ended up deciding that I needed a new knife. And I got this from a hardware store that my grandpa, when my grandpa retired, went to work for his wife's brother's hardware store, if that makes sense. And they had an exclusive contract with Camco. And every time I went there, when I'd visit Grandma and Grandpa, I would go up to the hardware store when Gramps was working, he'd put me to work. It's pretty cool. I was always in charge of, remember the old paint can shakers? You put a couple cans in there to balance it out, and then it just kind of real fast shook the paint up. So I was in charge of that and sweeping and mopping floors. So he gave me this Barlow. And that was a Camco 551. This isn't the original. This is a look-alike replacement. It's got plenty of steel on it, a little bit of pitting there, but nothing that can't be overlooked. I mean, it's a vintage knife, and you got to expect that. I know Pete doesn't like old rusty knives, but I do. Not necessarily rust, but I like the tieners on them. So we got the first knife, second knife, and third knife. This one represents a knife that looked similar to what my father had. The first time I seen a pocket knife, let alone a folding knife, was when I was 6 years old, and he took me fishing. And he had a knife just like this. It was a Bearhead Jack. I remember both blades came out of the one side. And yeah, it was the first time I had ever seen anything like it. And I know it was when I was 6 years old, because it was before I joined Little League Baseball and before I joined the Cub Scouts. I joined Little League when I was 7 and the Cub Scouts when I was 8. But yeah, that's what turned me on. I mean, I was completely amazed. Before I had ever seen anything like this, the only knives I was familiar with were kitchen knives, watching Ma cut bread with the serrated blade, and watching Dad cut the turkey with a slicing knife. Slicer, kitchen slicer. So when Dad pulled this out, I never forgot it. And I knew it was only a couple years. I knew in the Cub Scouts you would get your own knife. And I really wanted this knife. Not to mention I wanted to join the, what they call it, the Pinewood Derby, which I took second place in, by the way, because I think the winner actually cheated. I think he put oil on the axles. They checked it out. They said everything was kosher, but there was a rumor that he used graphite. Remember the old graphite lubricant? Because the rule was you couldn't use oil or WD-40 on the axles. But I think because I mean, he was just blowing everybody away, and all the races were close. But yeah, I remember getting the Do Your Best, Help Other People Out badge. I promised to do my best, to do my duty to God and country, to help other people, and to obey the law of the pack. So I got all that for the 1 year I was in Cub Scouts. So those are the first 3 knives. This I actually got. This was 8 years old, 10 years old. Used this for about 5 years. And I remember I got this probably when I was 15, because what I did for money, besides cutting grass, trimming hedges, painting garage doors, was installing car stereos for all the people in the high school that I was at. And I needed a knife to strip wire and, just to get the job done to install the stereo. There was big money in that. And I started a savings account when I was 12, and that's where most of the money came to buy all this stuff. I mean, I had savings account since I was 12, and I just started Since it wasn't getting any interest, I decided to kind of invest into a knife collection. So there's the first three, and here's kind of like what my influence was. I'm not sure, it could have been a gun stock. It was not a Barlow because I remember it had a thin cap, because he let me kind of play with it, but then he told me after I started getting too close to cutting myself, he put it back in the tackle box. So I had a pretty good idea of something that I wanted. But since Gramps gave me this for all the work I did at the hardware store, I was completely happy with it. And it ended up putting in a lot of stereo sound systems in vehicles. But all my friends were getting the Buck 110. Not this one, this is new, this is the Danny P, but the standard Buck 110. And I asked Mom and Dad if I could get a Buck 110. They said no, not until you're 16. They had this stupid thing with you had to be a certain age before you could do something. Like you had to be 12 years old before you could shoot Grandpa's rifle, which is now my rifle. But and then 16 to get a locking blade. And of course, no drinking until you were 18, even though the law was you had to be 21. They knew that the drinking and smoking I actually started before I was 18, but it's here nor there. So we got those. So what I just want to say about traditionals is that's the background. I had never seen a modern day knife until I seen a Buck 110, and I considered that at the time. When I was 15, that would have been 1976. That would have been a modern day knife to me. So move ahead way up to 2014, 2015 when I decided to start collecting and reinvesting my my savings account for that was there for years and years. I started looking at traditionals, not any of the moderns, because the traditionals, for just some reason, with all the natural materials, this was one of the first knives that I got as a collector. I picked this up for $72, when something like this that I picked up around the same time was $200. So kind of being the frugal man that I am, I mean, what really kind of turns you on and more, twinkles your toes, than a beautiful Granddaddy Barlow for $72 on eBay, or a modern that you couldn't get on eBay for $200. Still a very nice knife. And I've always considered my right pocket carry as more of a tool to get the job done, whether it's self-defense or some hard work. And my left pocket carry, my traditional, more as a little bit of relaxful, pocket jewelry. This here you're going to use, excuse me, this is you're going to use in a hurry, one hand, boom, get it done, doom, doom, doom. But if you got time to sit at your workbench, there's nothing like pulling out this from the 1920s, which would be an antique, by the way. I'm going to, again, qualify. All you have to do is Google it. An antique item must be 100 years old. Just so you guys know. If you don't believe me, you can Google it. But this is an antique, because this is, I believe, It's a Voos USA, which was started in Connecticut back in the 1800s. And that's real Rogers bone. So it's basically the hunt is why I got way more traditionals than moderns. And like I said, I still to this day consider a modern knife as more of a tool, where I consider traditionals more of a just a relaxful whittling piece of jewelry, you know, something really nice to sit around and whittle with. So what I did was I brought out a couple other moderns that I had. This one was one of my main work knives, which is the Little Native, although I didn't like the powder coat on it, so I put my own brush grind. I'm losing my voice, so we're gonna have to cut this short. This weather's killing me. But here's another little fun thing. I'm going to do some more. This is another Camco. And Camco was Camillus's answer to Imperial and Colonial, which was their budget line that they started in the 50s. And this is an original one from the 50s at Dick Tracy. Look at it, clue detector, which is a magnifying glass. And the Crime Stopper whistle. It still works. Stop, thief. So, but I'll do that on a fun knife Friday. I got more of these. I like collecting this kind of stuff. I know that's not for everyone, but it's kind of like trinket stuff to me. So we'll just take a look around here. Of course, you guys seen the old Sheffield pen knife. Here's another Sheffield one. Now, what person really, for all you guys that are strictly modern guys, yes, I'm talking to you, Gary, Last Ranger. I found this for $40 on eBay. Tell me you wouldn't pay $40 for that ebony. Look at the condition it's in. Look how much steel's left on the blade. I'm figuring this could be anywhere from 1940 to even the 1800s, from what Stuart Harvey told me. This pattern here has been around for a long time. This would have been a farmer's work knife, no doubt. Shepherd. Anyone that had the horse and buggy, because this thing's going to cut right through lash, leather, burlap sacks, anything you want. This one I brought out just because this is the one that I influenced Big J to buy one of these. So touche on that, Jerry, since he made me buy, well, didn't make me buy, but them guys did such a good review. The Buck 112 Sport, which is, as you'll see as I'm going along here, the moderns are looking a little more fancy. I got the Buck 112 there. I love this one. This is a K-Bar Warthog. I like to carry this. This was a gift from Stuart Harvey. Check out the blade on that. Cool design. I like these fin grips. It's a knife you're not going to drop. You got plenty of thumb room. Really cool. But, you know, it's a budget carry, along with, because it's a tool, along with this one here, which is just a Medford look-alike, $20 on Amazon. Again, a tool. I don't need a fancy right pocket carry. Well, I didn't before this year, because Slippy made me buy this one over here. It's all Slippy's fault. So yeah, this here, and then I got the yellow one coming too. Just a beast of a knife there. Really cool. The 2021 version. And this was one I found that that I really like. This is the Viper Turn in ram's horn. Really cool blade, really nice knife. So, you know, I'm not strictly traditional. It's just that I like to collect more traditionals, I guess. I had this for a long time. Or I had one like this for a long time. This one I picked up a couple years ago, used. But it's the Explorer, and again, because it has the inline screwdriver and the magnifying glass and your toothpick and tweezers. So I had one of these in the 80s, I think. Didn't last long. Like I say, I drop things a lot and lose things a lot. Another fun modern that I have that's just a budget, but it's a tool. The Ka-Bar Space Force Corsair. And of course, the bucks. I got quite a few of those, but those are still kind of traditional to me. So that's pretty much it. To sum it all up is, lost you guys there for a minute. To sum it all up is, I started out, you know, my story's not too different than Ben Belkin or Austin over at Traditional Pocket Knives, where they were, you know, highly influenced by traditional knives by either their father or their grandfather. And that's what started me off. I mean, boom, 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 boom. And then, of course, I don't care what anybody says, that they may start out with this, but, it, you know, towards the cheaper purchases, even though I got this for a good deal. Come on, Pete. You want to buy this one, Petey? Send me 200. I only paid 72 for it, but I'll let it go for 200 just because I like you. But yeah, no, you guys know I don't sell. So, but anyway, that's pretty much my story. Vintage versus modern. Of course, I got some modern interpretations. I got one Jack Wolf. That's all I'll ever get. I don't know why you would want to chase all of those, especially at $300 a pop. Let's see. Then I got a Finch, and I got 2 Ohio River Jacks. And so I got a lot of the in-betweeners, the modern traditional interpretations. But I mean, I can't fit everything out. And it's already been a video that's too long. So until next time, my friends, I'll leave you with this as the dogs bark. Until next time, my friends, take care. Peace. Bye-bye.